When you have so much good action on a Saturday and Sunday in college basketball, it drops off just ever so slightly on a Monday, but still some very noteworthy games on a big Monday around college hoops. DRS, let's start with the number 3 team in the nation. That would be the Duke Blue Devils in action on the road in Charlottesville against Virginia. There's a chance the Dukies move up in the AP poll that will be released around 1 p.m. Eastern time on this Monday, of course, with Alabama going down at home to Auburn over the weekend. 13.5-point spread now in favor of Duke. Total stands at 131.5. This is not the Virginia basketball of old. Of course, Tony Bennett is no longer the head coach of the Cavaliers, but they are playing better basketball as of late. UVA has won 4 straight. Can they provide a test to the Blue Devils tonight?
Yeah, you know what's interesting, too, because you look at Virginia the past couple of games, they've actually been scoring some pretty decent numbers here, but I don't know if that's going to continue tonight. Why? Duke on offense themselves, number 1 in efficiency in conference play in the ACC, but what do we also love about Duke? Number 1 on defense in the ACC play with efficiency, which then you start to fold into and say, what does Virginia not do well on offense, Ben? Well, they don't offensively rebound the basketball all that much. And when you talk about a team that plays at that glacier pace, you better get second chance opportunities. Duke's a very good defensive team rebounding the basketball. So less putbacks here, less second chance points. Also understand this, 18 teams in the ACC, 17th at getting to the free throw line, it's the Virginia Cavaliers. 4th at fouling is the Duke Blue Devils. Not a great match. So already what we're saying, Ben, is you're not going to get second chance opportunities. You're not going to steal points at the charity stripe. That's going to hurt. Also keep in mind, the Duke Blue Devils, number 1 in conference play, defending inside the arc at 43.6%. So for understanding this, Duke's going to win the game. Do you want to lay close to 15 points? Maybe you don't want to do that. But for me, I do look at the team total for Virginia, even bucking the recent trend that they've been scoring points under 58.5. Because if I look at a team that plays slow, doesn't get extra rebounds, won't get to the free throw line, going up against the most efficient defense in ACC play, I don't know if they get to 60 points. I'm willing to live with the under, despite the recent performances for Virginia on offense. Duke's the best defensive team in the ACC. That should hold true tonight as well.
UVA has scored 73 points at least in 5 consecutive games. Donnie, they have actually played to the over in 14 ACC games this year 11 times. Not something you normally associate with UVA basketball. Now, even under Ron Sanchez, longtime assistant, under Tony Bennett, the format is still very much the same. 3rd slowest tempo in all of the sport. Not exactly efficient on the offensive side of the floor. I said 4 straight wins. Let me correct myself. 3 consecutive victories for Virginia, but they've won outright as a dog in that span as well. Duke, in terms of ACC play, 14-1 straight up, 9-6, Donnie, against the number. And that's because the numbers are often ridiculously double-digit priced spreads. Duke's average margin of victory in ACC games, 19.9 points per game. They can certainly win this one by double digits, even on the road. I do think the total for the game overall is a little bit shy, because if Virginia flirts with 60, Donnie, and even barely stays under that number, and the odds track in terms of the spread, and Duke is going to win by double digits or cover as a 13.5-point favorite, they're into the low 70s. Over 131.5 is a way that I would look. UVA going over so often, Donnie, not because it's 155 and we're seeing high-scoring affairs, but because those totals are so minimal to begin. Arizona at home over the weekend, top 15 tilt, hosting Houston. The Cougs, an ever-so-slight favorite in Tucson. They won that game and covered 62-58, but a hard-fought bout. Arizona now on the road with a quick turnaround, heading to Waco tonight. Basically a pick-em here, DRS, for Arizona visiting Baylor. How do you see this game playing out between the Wildcats and the Bears?
Yeah, take a look at the free throw shooting between these two in a close game. Who do you want to lean to? Well, it's 1-2 in conference play. 79.3% in conference play for Arizona. Then Baylor at 79.1%. So that's where you say, okay, both of these teams going to make their free throw shots. Who's actually getting to the free throw line more? We look at Arizona's defense in conference play, been number 1 in the conference and not allowing you to get to the free throw line. You say, why would that be important? Well, I just told you, they shoot close to 80% as a team, talking about Baylor getting to the free throw line. Also, point distribution for Baylor heading into this from the free throw line, third in conference play. Almost 22% of their points come from the free throw line. Flip it over to the opposite side for Arizona. I just told you they don't foul. How about 15% of the points going against the defense going, which is 16th in the conference. So if I'm at Baylor and I'm like, you know what, I like to get to the free throw line and make a lot of free throws, I don't think that's going to be there. So you can go through and acknowledge them. Hey, the Arizona offense is good. They're looking for a bounce back. But sometimes you just like to pinpoint one spot in this game that can make a difference on a line at -1.5. I just don't think Baylor's going to get enough free throw attempts here to use that 80% to their advantage, and maybe Arizona uses that in their favor. I'll take the slight upset just based on the number at +1.5 with Arizona.
Completely agree, DRS. Arizona, a tough week last week. They had played such better basketball. They had one conference loss entering this past week. They were on the road in the Octagon of Doom against a streaking K-State team. Lost that game by 3. At home, hoping to bounce back in Tucson against maybe the best team in the sport, but certainly the best team in the Big 12, that being Houston. They suffer a close 4-point loss. 2 losses by a grand total of 7 points. Baylor's good this year under Scott Drew. They're not the elite Baylor teams we have seen in the last few seasons. Really big game. Arizona also trying to keep pace with Houston to challenge the Cougars, if at all possible, for the top spot in the Big 12. I would also keep an eye on K-State tonight on the road in Salt Lake, catching 2.5 points. The Wildcats saw their 6-game win streak come to a close on Saturday, getting beat by double digits against BYU. But K-State has remained in Utah. Utah, a huge home win over Kansas. A favorite tonight, maybe coming down just a little bit. Any other looks for you, DRS, in college basketball on this Monday?
No, going to get down some of the names that I usually get familiar with, like the McNeese States versus the Southeastern Louisiana, Lamar, and Northwestern State. So it's that time of the year where, as we just said, 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, we should say, we are going to already have conference tournament plays, which is pretty big. So get to know those teams now as they head down the stretch, catch a hot ticket, might be able to put some money in your pocket. So looking for it. Officially, college basketball season with the NFL hangover gone after this weekend. We're ready for action.
Those college hoops teams totals, it's where DRS thrives in the sport, and I mean that. Donnie, have a great time on the money line. We'll talk tomorrow. More on the early line up next. Live right here on the early line, starting off a new week, but rounding out our 3 hours together on this Monday. Hope you have enjoyed today's show, your long holiday weekend. If you're back in the fold tomorrow, of course, we'll be here on a Tuesday starting at 8 a.m. Eastern. On Saturday, a big weekend of college basketball, but made even slightly bigger, although it doesn't have a ton of meaning outside of peeling back the curtain and getting a sense of how the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee is viewing this season in college hoops. The early bracket preview, as the committee chair, Bubba Cunningham, who is the AD at North Carolina, reveals how the committee is seeing this season in college basketball in the top 16 overall seeds at this moment. 4 teams in the top 4 seed lines. All 4 1s, all 4 2s, all 4 3s, and all 4 4s. Now fewer than 4 weeks away from Selection Sunday. Here is how it broke down on Saturday. They went region by region. Part of this I will try to explain based on locale in just a moment. But Auburn, the number 1 overall seed, who could fault the committee for that? Proven immediately correct just a few hours later as Auburn goes into Tuscaloosa and knocks off the Crimson Tide in the first 1-2 in SEC men's basketball history ever as a road underdog. Auburn has 14 quad 1 wins. Only one other team in the country, that being Alabama, has at least 14 quad 1 plus quad 2 victories at this moment. And the Tigers have done this playing one of the most difficult schedules in the country. Auburn is going to be, in my estimation, unless disaster strikes on the plains in the next few weeks, knock on wood, the number 1 overall seed come Selection Sunday in just about 4 weeks. So Auburn, the number 1 overall seed. The other 3 top seeds in the South region, Texas A&M, Wisconsin as the 3, Texas Tech as the 4. Alabama, Purdue, Iowa State, and Kansas in a loaded Midwest top 4 at this moment. The West, Florida, the final 1 seed, which means Houston would be the top overall 2 seed. Kentucky and Michigan, Duke, Tennessee, Arizona, and St. John's. Those top 4 teams out east. Now, Bubba Cunningham, again, the selection committee chair, was asked about this on Saturday. Because Auburn is the number 1 overall seed, they get to choose which region is most favorable, where they would want to play in the Final Four, where they would want to play, not the Final Four, where they would want to play in the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8, in the regional semi and final. I believe the South region is set to play in Atlanta. Of course, Auburn wants to play there. But with so many top-heavy SEC teams in this bracket reveal, 3 of the 4 teams on the 1 line, as you tally it up, 7 overall, or 6 overall rather, top teams here overall in the top 16. You have 6 of the top 16, nearly half from the SEC. There are going to be some favorable spots for those other teams. For instance, the East Regional this year, the semifinal and final matchup, the Elite 8 and Sweet 16, that's in Newark, New Jersey. That would be pretty fun for St. John's if they were to get to that point. Of course, the selection committee chair in Bubba Cunningham saying he is understanding of location, and they try to not make it a priority, but sometimes it's just how the bracket were to play out. And with so many SEC teams in that early bracket preview of the top 16 overall seeds, something to pay attention to. Again, the 4 teams on the 1 line: Auburn, Alabama, Duke, and Florida in that order. Florida being the last team on the 1 line is notable. And I believe here, if I can try to find it, I'm not sure the odds are out. I know over the weekend at times there were odds to be a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, and Florida had a juicy plus 650 price. I would keep an eye on the Gators if that market becomes available again. I would also keep an eye on the Gators in terms of those national championship prices, because here are the updated odds. Auburn, a short favorite, now kind of widening that gap in front of Duke at a 3-1 price. It is hard to argue the resume or the eye test of what we see out of the Tigers at this moment, deserving to be those solo favorites to win a national championship. Duke, second best price. Houston and Florida tied for that third best number at 9-1. Alabama rounds out the top 5 at 10-1. Some really intriguing numbers as of this moment, and it will only get better and better as we get closer to March in these final 2 weeks or so of February. The early line returns tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern time on the Grid.